The TIE Fighter is one of the most iconic spacecraft in science fiction, with its large radiator panels, cockpit design, and screeching ion engines all instantly recognizable symbols of Star Wars. But the TIE Fighter came in many varieties, a rare example of diversity in the otherwise overwhelmingly conformist Imperial military. We've discussed some TIE variants in the past, mostly nonsensical or plain ineffective designs from the darkest depths of the EU. But today, we're going to be covering the four staples of the TIE line: the standard TIE Fighter, the TIE Advanced, the TIE Bomber, and the TIE Interceptor.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
First things first, what makes a TIE Fighter a TIE Fighter? Well, as many of you know, TIE stands for Twin Ion Engine, a revolutionary new piece of propulsion tech produced by Sinar Fleet Systems. Formerly known as the Sci-TIE, this revolutionary engine design used microparticle accelerators to agitate ionized gases to relativistic velocities, and it was designed to work in conjunction with solar panels for energy collection. It was super compact, allowing for the construction of tiny and extraordinarily fast space superiority fighters. This engine also completely lacked moving parts on the inside, making it very easy to maintain. TIE fighters were all built around this engine system, with other notable features including large side-mounted radiator panels and a small, compact cockpit ball. TIEs were mass-produced during the reign of the Empire, deployed in large swarms during battles with rebel factions. TIE fighters were often considered expendable by Imperial commanders, as were TIE pilots, who usually weren't provided with life support and were readily sacrificed in the name of victory by their superiors. TIE pilots were otherwise treated like stormtroopers and were expected to maintain uniformity, something that extended to their craft. While pilots in other militaries might have their own designated fighter that they might bond with, TIE pilots rarely flew the same ship twice, and all TIE fighters were interchangeable. Now let's talk about the fighters themselves, starting with the classic. Corran Horn once said that TIE fighters were the most basic commodity in the galaxy after hydrogen and stupidity. And while that's an exaggeration, he had the right idea. These ships were ubiquitous, deployed by the hundreds during the Galactic Civil War, and the design was devastatingly simple and efficient. The basic TIE LN starfighter was built around a central ball section, which contained the twin ion engine array in the back, the cockpit up front, and a pair of laser cannons below. Hexagonal solar panels extended out to either side of the central section on support struts, powering the engines. By the time of the Galactic Civil War, all TIEs also had secondary power generators for the laser cannons and other systems, as TIE models powered exclusively by their solar panels had to divert power from the engines to fire their weapons, which is borderline suicidal. Then again, so was the rest of the design. The TIE Fighter was extremely basic. It lacked shields, armor, and life support systems, and its cockpit was extremely bare bones. It had an ejector seat contrary to popular belief, but this was mostly a formality, since the TIE fighters tended to disintegrate rapidly whenever they took critical damage. TIE LNs also lacked proper landing gear, relying on specialized docking armatures aboard capital ships, space stations, or ground facilities to land. This taught TIE pilots to blindly rely on higher authority, an added bonus from the perspective of Imperial officers. Nearly all of the TIE fighters' systems were dedicated to flying fast and shooting, both of which it could do extremely well. Its guns were moderately powerful, and its maneuverability was second to none. It needed every bit of that maneuverability to survive, however, as between its lack of shields and lack of armor, the basic TIE was extremely fragile. The same wasn't true of the TIE Advanced, however. As you might expect from the name, the TIE Advanced ×1 was an improved variant of the TIE Fighter reserved for only the most elite Imperial pilots, such as Darth Vader himself. The TIE Advanced was essentially just a TIE Fighter, but longer and with extra features. Its elongated section housed a hyperdrive and a deflector shield generator, while its longer solar panels give it more power to work with. These longer wings were bent, eliminating one of the key flaws of the basic TIE, which presented a small target profile when coming head-on, but was much easier to hit from an angle. The TIE Advanced more or less eliminated this weakness with its more complex wing structure, though its larger size naturally presented a larger target profile anyway. Despite the TIE Advanced's larger size, it was actually slightly faster than the TIE LM due to its more efficient panel design and more powerful twin-ion engines, making it extremely dangerous in combat, capable of matching a T-65 X-Wing. Like the standard TIE, it lacked life support, and its weapons were identical to the stock model as well, but its hyperdrive and shields gave the TIE Advanced much greater survivability. Neither were top quality. The hyperdrive was a Class 4, and the shields were of moderate strength. But hey, that's better than nothing. And when neither were in use, additional power could be routed to the guns and the engines. Darth Vader, who was used to flying shieldless fighters from his days as a Jedi Ace, kept the shields on his TIE Advanced off for precisely this reason. Ultimately, the TIE Advanced was too expensive to mass produce, relegating it to being flown by elite pilots. But lessons from its design were carried on into two other TIE designs, the TIE Bomber and the TIE Interceptor. The TIE SA Bomber somewhat resembled the TIE Advanced, with the same bent wing design and longer main section, but it was a much, much different beast. It was built around two elongated central sections, one of which featured the cockpit, laser cannons, and essential systems, and the other of which featured the craft's main weapons. Unlike all other TIEs, the TIE Bomber actually had life support systems, though it lacked shields and a hyperdrive. It was also much more armored than the standard TIE, but this was made mostly irrelevant by the fact that the TIE Bomber was much slower than other TIEs, making it such an easy target that pilots of the Rebel Alliance nicknamed them Sitting Ducks. But the TIE Bomber wasn't meant for dogfights anyway. It was meant for planetary or naval bombardment, and it was well equipped for that task. Its weapons pod was full of deadly goodies, with 5 built-in munitions launchers. 2 were proton torpedo launchers, with a standard capacity of 4 torpedoes each, while 2 others were concussion missile launchers, with a standard capacity of 8 missiles each. The 5th was the craft's bomb bay, which could carry a total of 15 metric tons worth of payload. This could be 6 space mines, 4 proton bombs, 64 thermal detonators, or thousands of propaganda leaflets. All of these, except the latter, were devastating when combined with the TIE Bomber's other munitions, making these bad boys quite dangerous. Then there was the TIE IN Interceptor. These were the smallest TIE fighters yet, combining with the standard TIE Central module with smaller, angular bent-wing solar panels. These panels were more efficient, as were the TIE Interceptor's upgraded twin-ion engines, which made the Interceptor disgustingly fast and maneuverable. This, combined with the Interceptor's tiny target profile, made it extremely hard to hit from any angle. The TIE Interceptor's primary weapons were not a pair of chin-mounted laser cannons, but rather 4 more powerful cannons mounted on the wingtips, though hard points for the chin guns remained, even if they weren't present on the stock model. That was pretty much all there was to the TIE Interceptor. They lacked shields, armor, a hyperdrive, life support systems, and all else, and they were actually even more fragile than the original TIE fighter, even if they had the speed and maneuverability to account for it. Theoretically, the Interceptors could be more survivable than the standard TIE, but it took a very skilled pilot to use their maneuverability to its fullest, and as a result, TIE Interceptor pilots were seen as exceptionally suicidal. Those who survived more than a handful of missions were considered aces. Despite its fragility, however, the TIE Interceptor was a vicious machine, capitalizing and expanding on the focuses of the original TIE fighter, flying fast and shooting. In swarms, TIE Interceptors were a nightmare for Rebel pilots, who often found themselves outnumbered and outmaneuvered by these agile craft. All of these TIE variants had their own strengths and weaknesses, but when working together as part of a cohesive military unit, they became a force to be reckoned with. In the hands of a competent military, the TIE line could have been all but unbeatable. Fortunately for the galaxy, the Imperial military was on the other side of the universe from competence, and the spirit and ingenuity of Rebel pilots proved more than a match for the TIE line's superior technology. So, that's our look at the 4 primary TIE fighters of the Galactic Empire. But what do you think? Which TIE is your favorite? Feel free to post your thoughts in the comment section below.